People have such a need to be valued, and you and I talked about this. The need for value really creates that hope. There's such a fear people have of stepping forward and being counted and being seen and heard. The world now has changed to the place where, because of cancellation, because of social media and the bullying that's part of social media, everyone's got an opinion, everyone's got a criticism. That's why that authenticity movement that you talked about at the top of the show is just it. Everyone's saying, be yourself, be yourself. That's the hardest thing to ask someone to do.
Disinformation is spreading.
There will be a surprise outbreak. Is the issue of pandemic.
No social distancing at all.
They said that they would express their concerns about the mask supply.
Where's the mask? Where's the glove?
A second wave is
we all need some good news.
A message for all the healthcare workers out there.
Thank you.
If you're looking for hope tonight, raise your hand. If you feel alone and don't understand, if you're fighting the fight of your life, then stand.
From Santa Rosa, California, this is 19 Stories. I'm Cheryl Halling. If you've spent any amount of time on popular social media channels, you're bound to have come across post after post with the anthem cry imploring you to be authentic, use your authentic voice, and for goodness sake, live your truth. But what exactly does that mean in a time when truths are manipulated and shaped to suit personal and political agendas, leaving one to wonder whether or not authenticity and, dare I say, integrity matter anymore? The guest joining me today, Dave Walsh, knows a thing or two about what it means to live into our authentic selves and has been sharing his method for almost 17 years as the founder and chief visionary officer of the True Tell Method, a unique and powerful coaching platform designed to help actors, executives, and leaders of all kinds find and use their authentic voice. Prior to coaching actors and executives in his True Tell Method, Dave has worn numerous hats in the creative arts with a career that spans over 34 years, from publicity and public relations to director of television research for Paramount to chairman, executive producer, and talent for Get A Laddah Entertainment to his very lucrative career as a top voice talent. Dave, by any measure, was a huge success. He was at the height of a magnificent voiceover career with an incredible manager, 2 agents, and 22 years of voiceover success when his entire world spiraled and he lost the use of his voice. After being diagnosed with spasmodic dysphonia, aka strangled voice syndrome, Dave began searching for answers for his own healing, and thus his powerful formula was birthed and branded as the True Tell. Naturally, Dave expanded his focus and adapted the True Tell's transformational process specifically for leaders and innovators and is on a mission to help them communicate more authentically to and with their teams and for customers for greater success. Let's welcome the highly esteemed and very authentic Dave Walsh to 19 Stories.
Wow, Cheryl, thank you for that. That was, I think I said to you earlier, can I hire you?
Anything for a price, Bobby.
As well. That was really sweet. Thank you so much for that. It's wonderful to be with you in this environment. I've been so looking forward to this.
And I thank you so very much, Dave, for being here, because the last time you and I chatted was when you joined me and my cohorts, Ann Ganguza and Jody Krangle, in our VIP clubhouse room to share a bit about your True Tell method. So I'm looking forward to being able to dive a little deeper today. And first of all, how are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. I cannot believe that it's fall.
I know. Oh my gosh.
How is it fall? I was away, took a vacation for 2 weeks, and it was just the whole time you're looking over your shoulder going, God's going to strike me down. This is just, you can't do it.
Wait. Because when you come back, there's going to be a lot of work or what?
Right. Well, I was raised Catholic.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
The conversation, recovering Catholic, and so you think that the wrath of God is going to come down because you had no right to take 2 weeks of vacation.
Oh my gosh!
But really, all kidding aside, it was really an opportunity for me to just really reset, and it really helped so much to be out of the country actually, and come back and really be excited about the fall and what's happening, and in terms of getting back to work. But you look at it with a different perspective. I mean, you come back with hopefully a different mindset, and I feel like I did.
I'm sure that plays into, and I'm so glad that you said a different mindset, because I'm sure that plays into your authentic voice, your true tell, and we're going to get into that.
Mhm.
I would love to know. I mean, I happen to know, but I'd love to share with our listeners, whereabouts in the country are you joining us from?
I'm based in Los Angeles, particularly West Hollywood. I've been in LA for 37 years and love it. I just, those people that live here or who have been here and left, there's a love-hate relationship with LA.
Mhm.
You living in Santa Rosa in gorgeous Northern California. I mean, I've spent quite a bit of time up there and it's so beautiful. But there is only one freeway in and out of Santa Rosa. So.
Oh, and it's crazy what I don't know when the last time you've been here, but it's absolutely crazy what they've done with it. And by the way, I'm originally from Los Angeles. I'm very familiar with the love-hate relationship with LA, but where are you originally from?
I'm originally from Boston.
Oh, you are? Okay. So when you said Boston, I heard Boston.
You
All right.
heard Boston.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I went back, part of the trip when I went to Europe, I took some time in between and made Boston the stop in and outbound. So I got to see my family and got to do that, which was really, really nice. But, when I came to California, not to belabor this, but people in California used to come to New England, particularly Cape Cod, for summers. And I would say, why are you doing that? You live in this gorgeous backyard of beaches and gorgeous coastline. And why are you flying 3,000 miles to go to the Cape?
Because it's gorgeous.
It is gorgeous. And
That's
so
why.
really, it took me moving away to kind of come back and really appreciate it. It's just, there is nothing like a New England summer. There just is not. It's just awesome. So I'm very happy to have been from there. And I'm a very proud Bostonian.
And rightfully so. Boston's a very, very hip city. I haven't been there in ages. Took the drive once when I lived in. I'm digressing now, and we'll definitely get into you because it's about you, Dave. But
you and I have a great time just talking, period. So
good. Well, thank you, because I think that's what it's all about. Outside of the hokey pokey, it's
totally.
But just taking the drive, I lived in New Jersey for a summer and took the drive all the way up through the tri-state area and went to New England and actually ended up in Toronto. But that's, I digress. So
that's a drive.
That is a drive, but I'll tell you, it was in the fall. There is nothing like seeing God's paintbrush of just, we have color up here, but, and you have color down there. It's different color.
It's different
we live
color,
in a
yeah.
big, beautiful blue orb. So, you mentioned in your intro that you developed the True Tell after being a top VO for 22 years. And I'd love for you to share what projects you worked on, as you were the national signature for numerous iconic brands.
Yes. Well, thank you. Some of my favorite accounts, I was the voice of Hyundai for 3 years, which you want to really learn about how car campaigns function. When you become a voice of something like that, where you understand the national brand, you understand the retail spots and the dealership spots. I mean, it was the gift that kept on giving. The two biggest, and still remain the two biggest, lucrative campaigns for voiceover are automotive and beer. Those are the two really that
beer. Did you say beer?
Beer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
BER.
Okay.
Yes. They're the Christmas present that just, keep giving and giving and giving.
One could hope, Dave. One could hope.
And I couldn't even believe that I even had that gift of doing that for that amount of time. But I really was able to, and was so lucky to work in so many parts of voiceover: promo, documentary narration, commercials, movie trailers, animation, video games. I really spent a lot of time focusing on excellence in each area. And this kind of leads into the conversation about what happened to my voice. I again had an incredible career in voiceover. I had a wonderful manager and agents, and still am very close to all of these people. And at the height of this career, that's where my voice, because I had spent so much time training, I eventually strangled my vocal cords. That's what caused the genesis of the True Tell and the genesis of a career. I'll call it enhancement as opposed to a change. But yeah, that was really the fact that I really worked in so many areas of voiceover and was successful. It also contributed to the demise.
Given that authenticity has become such a buzzword,
yeah,
that it's important to know between how it feels to be authentic versus we all need to be authentic.
Mm-hmm.
So can you share with us what the True Tell method is, and if you wouldn't mind elaborating a bit more on what happened that led you into developing it.
Oh, absolutely. When I was first diagnosed, you had mentioned the name spasmodic dysphonia, which was the name of the disorder, which is the medical term, as you said, for the strangled voice syndrome. The medical establishment around the world consider this to be a neurological disorder. And the belief was that my brain was sending involuntary signals from my brain to my vocal cords and causing them to spasm. Now, the way that this actually showed itself, it presented itself, was the lack of an ability to project my voice. Over time, my voice started to get more tired and more tired and more tired. As a matter of fact, in those Hyundai sessions I mentioned, the casting director and the producer his name is Andy Lerner, and Andy's a good friend, and so many people who have worked with him in the business will recognize his name. And Andy made a joke one day. I went into the studio and he had stacks of cases of water in the recording booth itself. And I looked at him and I said, "What, did you run out of closet space?" And he said, "No, those are for you."
Oh.
He said, "Dave, you are drinking us out of water, out of house and home." I kept thinking that my voice was dehydrated because my voice was deteriorating. So I felt that as long as I kept it hydrated, I'd be okay. But what was happening was the cords themselves were strangling. So Andy didn't know what it was, and Andy just kept ordering cases of water for me.
Oh my gosh.
Because I would work with him probably 3 times a week. So I just remember that as being something so distinct about that time of what I thought the condition was, and it was something completely different. To make a long story short, I ended up at UCLA, the UCLA speech pathology department here in LA. And, you walk in the room and there's gold records from Gloria Estefan and Paul McCartney.
Don't you love that about LA? Only in a LA doctor's
Only in LA,
office. Really?
right? You go into speech pathology and you have guitars on the walls. It's crazy. It's like going to the Hard Rock Cafe for speech pathology. And so they told me that there wasn't a cure for this, but that the only treatment for this was putting Botox into the vocal cords.
Unbelievable.
It's crazy.
It is. It's insane.
The doctors believed that because the vocal cords, they thought, were spasming, if you put Botox into the vocal cords, which are muscles, just like if you put vocal cords into your forehead and everyone
Botox,
wants to look fabulous for Botox, right? It deadens or it freezes the muscles. So if you freeze vocal cords, they don't move. And when they don't move, you don't speak. The after effects of these injections each time was being mute for 6 to 12 weeks at a time.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Can you imagine?
No.
So
no, you're already losing your voice. So let's just add
Let's make it worse.
Yeah.
They said there's a support group. This is my favorite. I don't think I told you this. There was a support group. They handed me a pamphlet for people with spasmodic dysphonia. The support group met in Fresno, California.
Okay. And first of all, what are you supposed to learn sign language because you can't speak?
No. And I'm just like, what is this support group for? Like, it's just, there's one place and it's in Fresno. No offense to Fresno, but come on.
Yeah, Fresno, shout out to you. We love you. But that was prior to, or I don't even think Zoom was a thing at that time, right?
Zoom wasn't even a thing then. So we couldn't have any kind of face-to-face communication. But I opted out of this treatment because I was going to call my agents and just say my career is over. And I ended up finding a doctor in West Los Angeles who was the only doctor in the world who didn't treat this with Botox. Because he, first of all, believe it or not, used to be on the staff at UCLA's speech pathology department. He had spasmodic dysphonia himself. And he said his belief was that we all have what's called a vocal identity and that we walk the planet looking to represent ourselves as podcast hosts, actors, CEOs, parents, children, whatever our roles, quote unquote, are. We chameleonize our voices to fit into those various scenarios. So he said to me, what you did after being classically trained as an actor was put on voices, sounds on top of that artistry to be more competitive. And I did do that, Cheryl. It worked incredibly well until it didn't.
In all fairness, that's what was selling. That's what got you booked. That's what gave you this 22-year career. In some ways, the industry dictated that and you took that on so that you had that career. So what advice do you have? And again, I'm digressing a little bit. If you want to get back on track with that, please. But it just dawned on me, what does someone do? It's kind of like if I said, oh, I really want to be a stage actor, but I kept getting booked for commercials. Right. So if the industry was telling Dave Walsh, this is the voice they love, what do you do in that instance?
What I didn't realize at the time was that a lot of these people, their voices were their natural voices. These are the voices they were born with.
Okay.
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 And there was rasp to some of them. Some of them had damage. Some of them were incredibly basso profundo. If anybody is a singer out there, you know the scales, basso profundo is
Mhm.
the lowest pitch that there is. That some of these guys walked around just speaking and the earth would move. Right. So, you're kind of wanting to have, everybody wants to be that deep, dark trailer voice. I mean, every guy wants to be that hyper masculine voice. Women want to have the most feminine voices. And what's ironic is a lot of the women who are good friends of mine in the business who do a lot of promo, these women have baritone voices. They're the voices of news stations, of networks. There's such an incredible brand loyalty to these voices. They're gorgeous. But it doesn't mean that women have to have voices that are baritone to be successful in voiceover, nor do men have to have hyper masculine voices to do it. My genius in my head was if I can be more competitive as they are, it'll work. And it did.
Okay.
But then because my voice couldn't sustain the inauthenticity because my vocal cords weren't designed that way, it gave out. So here I am working with this doctor in West LA. And what he did, the way he trained, I basically went back to school to learn how to speak again. And I would walk around. I would still be working, but I wouldn't tell my agents. No one knew I had this disorder, but they knew that something was wrong. My psychological self-esteem, I'll say, was on a spiral. I never trusted my voice. I hated going into the booth. I hated auditioning because it was painful and it was also just too psychologically draining.
I was going to ask you if it was painful.
Yeah, it was awful. There was a point of, I did think about kind of ending it because I thought it was really that dark because I felt if my voice was gone, who was I?
Mm.
I had no value.
Oh my gosh, Dave, that was such an identity for you.
It was such an identity for me. I literally used my voice was my livelihood. It was my self-esteem because the career was so lucrative. And so it was that common practice of, getting enamored with the bright, shiny object, right? So in these sessions with the doctor and the clients, I worked with people from all over the world that had the same disorder. And what I noticed was, wait a minute, he's a CEO, she's a housewife, that's an entrepreneur, she's a singer from Tokyo. And again, they came from every corner of the globe because Mort Cooper, who was the doctor, didn't treat it with Botox. He was the only doctor in the world who didn't. So we had people coming from every corner of the globe to work with him. He then took me on as his apprentice because he was so impressed with the way that I took to the program. And I basically went back to school for 4 years and worked with him as his apprentice. And I worked
you
with
did
people.
not mention. I had no idea.
Yes, and that's how
brilliant.
this started because I started to realize we even had people that were transitioning from female to male. We had one gal who was transitioning from male to female, and she was afraid. The last point of transition for her was her voice because she felt that if she spoke in her higher register, she would sound, I'm not being chauvinistic, I'd sound like a dumb blonde. And what I heard in the room was that, and I remember one of the other patients almost fell off the chair going, I can't believe that you've taken this journey, that you feel this is the one thing that's holding you back is your voice. And I had dinner with her because I wanted to know more about how she thought, why she thought that way. And that she had such beauty. She was first of all, she was a beautiful woman. And that transition was the only thing holding her back. And it really kind of proved the fact that people have these ideas in their head of what holds them back from their authenticity, from their truth about what will others think.
But Dave, that's in so many things right now.
Absolutely.
You have got a petri dish, if you will, right now. I mean, I think just the amount of things that people get stuck on. So
absolutely. And so I started to coach actors. One of the ways that I started to unpaint my black painted windows.
Literally, you had black painted windows.
Literally. It was just to the point where I was like, I shut the world out. I didn't answer the phone. I very rarely would audition. I would go to stores and use a wipe-off board. Now, this is before I went to Mort, but I basically was living in my own hell. And so what I started to do was to teach actors not to do what I did, which was to get them to speak from their authentic voice. And what started to happen was people would come to me and say, I didn't realize it was so effortless to do this, that I feel good, I feel joy, I feel connected, I feel passionate. And the notes they would get back would be positive, and they started to book more and more work. So I knew something had changed. Something in this particular program was different. And as time went on, the program morphed into the True Tell. And over the last, I would say, the name True Tell wasn't taken on until probably 2014. So it's been a good 9 years that this particular formal program has been in place. But I've been teaching actors authenticity for the past 15 years. So, and what's happened over time is it's become a very entrenched part of vocal coaching in the voiceover world. And I'm incredibly proud of it. I'm so, so proud of it.
I believe I asked you this before when you joined us in VIP, but I think it's really important because when people hear this, they think, anyone struggling with their authentic voice or what that means to them, that can be terrifying.
Yes.
And I'm wondering how you both create a safe space and hold someone's hand through the daunting task of facing their sound of fear to the sound of hope. You mentioned in a correspondence with me that that's something that was really important to touch on. So I guess I have two questions here.
Sure.
What you interpret the sound of fear versus the sound of hope. And then how do you guide someone through that process?
Well, again, as you said, when we first started talking about 19 stories, I really, the resonance from fear to hope it just spoke to me. It was just beautiful. And, people will, whether it's an actor coming to me, a lot of history in people's voices of, that they were basically in a family. One client was in a family of 6, and he was of an Israeli family. The father had the loudest voice. He was the youngest. Do the math. There's no way that he could possibly be heard in the family.
Sure.
And so you're bringing, people are coming in to working with you that have all kinds of self-awareness, self-esteem problems, not liking the sound of their voices, feeling very diminutive. They may be 6'5" and they're diminutive in voice because the taller some people are, the more insecure people are about their voices. I found tall clients, whether they're voice actors or executives, and we're going to talk about the executive side of this in a few minutes, but it doesn't matter. A tall client sometimes is much more diminutive because their voice either will be overpowering to a smaller group of people or they can't hear. Remember,
because of their height.
Because of their height. If you're talking about
Oh
someone
my
that's average
gosh.
5'7" or 5'8" against someone who's 6'5", that's over a foot of difference in sound quality. So I've
Never
always-
thought of that, Dave. That's amazing. Never thought
And
of
that
that.
really changes someone's self-esteem of, does their voice have value? Do I chameleonize my voice? Do I stay quiet? People have sat in the back of rooms and I've been wanting them to bring their voices forward. I'm saying, you've been spending enough time in the back of the room for your whole life. Let's bring your voice down forward. People have such a need to be valued. And you and I talked about this. The need for value really creates that hope. There's such a fear people have of stepping forward and being counted and being seen and heard. The world now has changed to the place where, because of cancellation, because of social media and the bullying that's part of social media,
Gosh.
everyone's got an opinion, everyone's got a criticism, and it's really caused, that's why that authenticity movement that you talked about at the top of the show is just it. Everyone's saying, be yourself, be yourself. That's the hardest thing to ask someone to do.
And you hear that in acting classes all the time. And just what the heck does that mean?
Right. I mean, you're talking about present moment. You're talking about living. That's what acting is. It's present moment truth. And camera and stage actors don't have as much of a problem with their voice because they don't focus on it. They focus on the connection and the subtext of their characters. But when all of a sudden you put someone in front of a microphone, or they're in front of their public speaking at a stockholders meeting or at a company retreat or a conference, whatever it is, even speaking just to their staff, there is that hesitancy because I need to sound like a leader. I'm the senior vice president of human relations. I'm the senior vice president of marketing. I'm whatever. I'm a C-suiter. What does a C-suiter sound like? It's part of what I talk about with my corporate clients. What does a leader sound like? There is a belief that we have that leaders sound a certain way. And there's an old, I think an outdated format of what a leader sounds like. And what we're finding, what I've found in my corporate work with clients is that employees are really looking for the two things from their leadership now is transparency and authenticity. They're looking for those two things. That's what they want. So I think the time is ripe for that whole idea of turning fear into hope and giving people that ability to step forward and be counted and valued.
I love that. Anyone who has a mission, and it's clearly your mission to give people that hope that they can face whatever fear and life conditioning, because of course a lot of it is that cultural conditioning. And you touched upon this, but given that you work with both creatives and corporate business executives in helping them with their true tell, do you see a difference between the two, or is there a common theme that these seemingly opposing groups of people share?
I think that what they share is being human. They share that.
Okay.
They share that human instinct about wanting to be able to be heard and valued, that the struggles that they've had, a lot of them have started in childhood. It may be because of relationships, marriages, professional journeys, whatever. But with actors are more apt to be vulnerable because they're given a lot of space to do that. That is part of acting, period. That's part of acting workshops, improv. It's just an actor's mentality. That's the world they come from. When it comes to being a corporate executive or an entrepreneur or anyone in any professional space, it's not necessarily just executives. It's anyone who's a leader in their lives. That includes parents, that includes coaches, that includes teachers. It includes everyone. But those safe spaces are not as common. They're not used to being in them. So allowing themselves to be more vulnerable it's not as common. And what I found, particularly in the business sector, people are so hungry for that ability. I didn't realize it until I started working with executives. Someone actually had said to me, "You're never going to get executives to be authentic. You're not going to get them to be transparent and vulnerable. It's not a leader's ilk." And I was like, okay. I heard it. I had a little bit of hesitancy, but I moved forward. And when I did, I was really glad I did, because I gave them an inch, they took a foot. Executives would come to me. One woman, I think I mentioned this to you last time. I did a workshop in Salt Lake City in March for a group of 120 human resource executives. I spoke for 50 minutes, that's all. And a woman came up to me and held my hand, and she had tears in her eyes, and she said, "I don't think I even have a voice anymore." And I looked at her. She had tears in her eyes, and I of course, I didn't want to look like I was reacting to her. I said, "How long have you had this thought?" She said, "My whole life."
Oh, gosh.
So when you give people in these environments an opportunity that is rare, this isn't about getting people to be better public speakers. It's not Toastmasters. It's not that. It is about giving people in any form of leadership role in their life, personal or professional, the space to be vulnerable and be valued, and to find that authentic core that isn't related to sound. In other words, if you're connected to what you're talking about, you'll sound pleasant. You'll sound connected. You'll sound knowledgeable, approachable.
Unless you're pissed off.
Oh, well, but here's the thing. At least your truth. At least you're true.
Yeah, that's true.
People may say, "You know something? I don't like what you said, but I like you said it to me."
Ooh, okay. Can I jump in here, because this leads me to my next question. That is so strong and so powerful, and I'll elaborate on that a little bit more with this next question. And I'll preface it by saying I recently transitioned out of a corporate environment where a lot of training went into educating people about being culturally sensitive and telling their truth, et cetera. And before I get into this question, I know that you had recently attended the Society of Human Resource Managers National Conference in Las Vegas.
Yes.
And connected with some incredible people in the human resource space. And you just mentioned this other one in Salt Lake City. And in a recent LinkedIn post, you mentioned that you discussed the challenges of authenticity in business, and that one of the most disturbing statistics you learned is that there was 75% of employees who experience bias of any kind who will most likely speak from and or perform with inauthenticity. So this question comes a little bit out of my recent experience as well.
Mm-hmm.
With the trend of corporate businesses working to be culturally sensitive, how much do you think the motivation is to be politically correct versus a true desire for them to create healthy and authentic work environments and communication with and for their employees?
I think there's a clash of cultures happening in the corporate space. I think that the older guard are feeling the need to be probably more politically correct
Okay.
because they're being called on the carpet. Companies are being called on the carpet for, exclusion. D&I, diversity and inclusion are that's one of the most primary areas of HR right now.
Yes.
It's a massive part of this. And I think the younger generation that's coming in, and I mentioned about the surveys that, and the studies that have been done, that the younger guard is coming in wanting that transparency and authenticity. And I think there's a fight. I think there's an unspoken fight going on where the two worlds are trying to live together. I think that leadership is responding to this desire and this call out for inclusion and diversity. In terms of, we've had with both the Me Too movement and Black Lives Matter, especially in the voiceover community, the explosion of the use of international voices being used for campaigns. It is extensive.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful thing to hear and
It's a
see
beautiful
too.
thing. It truly is. And I think, I've talked to several executives in different countries, and the whole idea of their ability to pronounce certain words in English because of their accents, does that hold them back? Does it make them feel like they're not being as heard as other people if they have an American accent, or if they, if there's a typical American accent versus they're coming from India, they're coming from Thailand, they're coming from wherever, and they have a home, their own culture's accent. How are they treated? Are they promotable? Are they recognized? Are they valued? And that is part of this conversation, is letting these executives, and I'm talking about executives in the C-suite space,
For
who
for
have
listeners who may not know what that is, C-suite.
is the C level, which is CEOs, CIOs, chief operating officers, chief executive officers, et cetera,
Thank you. Thanks.
in those spaces. Thank you. That even in those areas, there is an insecurity about, am I good enough? And so what I noticed was that this program is coming at the best possible time to work with these people to say, you have a safe space to tell me that you don't feel included. You have a safe space to tell me that that voice doesn't feel like it's valued. And you're overcompensating to be heard and seen. And I've had these conversations with CEOs who own 5 companies. So it isn't just employees at the lower level that are feeling this. They're feeling this at the top of the ticket.
Oh, I would imagine. I mean, I've talked with a couple myself who in the conversations it's never overtly said, but it's said in different ways that I don't have the luxury to be this vulnerable. When in fact, if they would be way more relatable and probably respected. And so I'm curious, going back to the woman who came up to you in Salt Lake City, which just is heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
What do you do? I mean, in the moment you're training, you're going through the process. And I don't know how much you want to elaborate on what the process is, because of
Sure.
course, when people work with you, that's all part of it.
Mhm.
But when you're going through the process, so this is kind of a twofold question too, maybe mention some of the elements of how you would work with someone like that. And is there any follow-up? Do you revisit that company and or group of people or person within, say, 6 months and say, how's this process working for you? Do we need to tweak it? Do we need to do some more work together? So yeah, how does that all play out?
We do that, the program, there's a number of different platforms that the process is available. There's, one-on-one coaching, VIP one-on-one coaching together. And then there's also half day and full day workshops. And we customize these workshops based on even what's happening in the company's climate, what is happening internally, where are the biggest Achilles heels, where are the things that you feel that there needs to be more dialogue about, and we incorporate those into the program. But to answer your original question about people like the woman in Salt Lake City or in any company where we involve people in your personal and professional life, we want to know
Oh, really? Okay.
how you're being heard in your own life. because that becomes the basis of how we move forward. We want to know how you're being received by friends and family. We want to know how you're being received by, fellow colleagues or by vendors or by whatever. So there is a deep dive that's done before we even start working on that, so that when we come together, whether in a workshop format or in the one-on-ones, we know what we're dealing with. And it kind of takes you out of your own head of you think you know how you're being received. Maybe not. So it levels the playing field a bit. It kind of just doesn't make it so daunting and all the way we reach out to people that you know is anonymous, that you won't know who said what and blah, blah, blah.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. But I think that once we actually come together, whether it's one-on-one or in the group, it is fully interactive. There's an immersive experience here where it's not a bunch of PowerPoint slides where you come in and you say, this is how I need to speak. You know what I mean?
Thank God.
It's not that, right?
Like we don't have enough PowerPoint presentations in a corporate environment.
I'm going to lose them in 2 seconds. I'm just going to lose them. But it's so interactive, and I get so jazzed when I talk about it, because the shifts and changes in the room for these executives has been incredible. I mean, I had a C-suite leadership group of 14 people of a company back east, and it was in Philadelphia, and really powerful, where they really got down and dirty and talked about the fact that they didn't feel courageous, and it really came forward. And I didn't force the conversation or this judgment. They brought it forward themselves. One woman said, I'm an accountant and I'm being told that my voice is too bland. I need to perk it up. I mean, really. And she said, this is what I do for a living. And I made it very clear. I took a stand in the room and I said, I'm going to say one thing and one thing only. I didn't point to anybody. And I said, no one is allowed to devalue or minimize the impact of anyone's voice.
Amen.
Ever. And the room looked at me and I said, if you think I'm kidding, try me. I said, no one in this room nor anyone in your lives are allowed to do this. And it creates a wake-up call for people. And even if it doesn't change everything in the company, even for that one day, even for the follow-up, which we do, we have follow-up and accountability partners that we ask you to have, and we track those. And we have a follow-up meeting to find out how it's all going, whether that's 3 months, 6 months, a year down the road. But it's giving you the wake-up call to what is needed. And the fact that people are sharing information about, and we talked about the words, the true tell, when they feel like they're in their authenticity, which is what we call your true tell, and when you're out of it, it's the feeling. Cheryl, this isn't about how you sound. It's about how it feels to speak from your truth. How does it feel internally? Because your voice is going to shift into either sounding believable and truthful or not. And that's all based on how you feel about what you're talking about.
Thank you for expanding on that, because I think we all know when we're not speaking the truth to someone or to ourselves, we make up stories at times and we want to fabricate or twist things so that it feels more comfortable. Sometimes, more times than not, for the person that we're speaking to. We got to be nice. We got to be the people pleaser. We got to be the fill in the blank, or, that woman saying, I'm an accountant and my voice is too bland. Like you said, really, do you want your numbers to add up and your spreadsheets to be great and you don't have the IRS auditing you? Or do you want my voice to, it's like, this is maybe more of a rhetorical question, because that is kind of one of life's questions. Where does this come from? I've heard numerous times in my life, you wear your heart on your sleeve and you don't have to be so open and honest with everybody. Sometimes it's okay to be light, superficial, and meaningless.
Mm-hmm.
I get that thinking to a point, because not everybody wants to, first of all, engage in deep conversation and know stuff. They want to just meet you. There's transactional relationships in business. That's okay. But that whole thing about not using, like I said, maybe it's rhetorical, but where does that come from? If you have an idea, I'd love to know.
I think when we're saying you don't always have to be so open and honest, right? I think that people's belief about authenticity is that it's always deep and serious.
Yes. Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
The thing is that being comfortable, I like to think of myself as a social guy. I like to be around people. I like to come from a place of relatability with people. And am I always going to be everybody's cup of tea? No, I know I'm not.
That's life. Yeah.
And that's how it is. But I think people try to, it becomes a popularity contest where I do want to be on everybody's good side. I'm the people pleaser. So I'm going to, put myself second and third and put you first, And I think there's a need for selfishness. I think there's a need to put your own feelings ahead. Now, if you have children, it's a different story, obviously, and spouses and whatever. But I think there is that give and take when it comes to that. The belief that being authentic means being honest and sometimes boring and always kind of wearing your heart on your sleeve. That doesn't mean that. It means being open. It means being flexible. It means being approachable. It doesn't mean being the most social guy or gal in the room. It doesn't mean those things. It means there's an effortless ability to just be you. Now, that is a tall order for anyone. Like I said, when you say just be yourself, oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, to quote you in another phrase, to sound authentic, you need to be authentic.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Because but there are times, look, let's be honest. A lot of times when people are compensating for pain in their lives, they overcompensate with niceness. They overcompensate with kindness. Leave them alone. They're doing what they can to survive. When and if the time comes for them to allow themselves to step forward and share that honesty with someone that they trust, fine. But when people are overcompensating for a pain, the judgment, there's an equal amount of judgment that comes on that side where people say, she's so sweet, she's so this, she's such a do-gooder. There's such a judgment in almost not a vile disdain or disgust for something like that I can pick up on that when people are overdoing. I leave them alone. But I always allow a gentle hand to say, let's have coffee sometime. Because I know that there's a door there. And I think sometimes when you hear people overcompensating, let them do it, but then offer that key to a side closet, to a porch, or whatever, where you can sit down and get to know them a lot more. Because at that point, if you give people that space, they will not take advantage, but they will fill that space. A lot of people will. Some people won't. I think it's that point of letting people just be.
What I'm hearing you say is a dose of grace.
Yes.
And taking advantage doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing. It means they are accepting the help and the recognition that you're giving them. And that's a beautiful explanation of how people kind of present what they're going through and how you can respond to it. And wow, Dave, in looking what your crisis that kind of started all of this, sometimes when a crisis happens in our lives, it can also present a hidden gift, if you will.
Yeah.
And given what you've shared here, that working with people through your True Tell has become your life's work.
Yeah.
Do you think that you would have pivoted into the work you're doing now had you not gone through what you did?
No, I don't think so. I would like to think that I am, I think that the joy that voiceover has given me, people say to me, do you miss the microphone? I say every day, but I still work on certain projects. I talk with agents and managers every day, casting directors. I'm in the middle of the fold every day. I love what I do. This is a new version of it, and it is so much more, it serves a place for me. It gives me a value that the lives that change because of what we do and why this program was created, nothing can replace that. Nothing. It truly is a wonderful transition. And if anybody told me this 10, 12 years ago, I'd have said, you're crazy. But one of the things I want to just make a quick comment on is that whole idea of, as you said, about people, not knowing what everyone's situation is as they're going through it. One of the core exercises we do in workshop is talking about when you're working with colleagues, with vendors, with clients, with employees, whatever, and they're presenting a resistance to your stories, your comments, your pitches, whatever, that there's a real aversion or there's a sticking point that I always say, it's never about what it's about. The immediate reaction to someone going through a bad day, someone going through something, whether this is your boss, whether this is someone in your professional day-to-day, don't always think it's about you. And how do you deal with that lack of transparency in the other person? Is giving it your ability to relax into the truth of what you're talking about and not expecting a cheering squad on the other end every 5 minutes, because that takes you off your game immediately. I just
That's
thought of that when you
fire.
were talking about, somebody else is going through a bad day. That's the person you're having a meeting with. That's the person you're pitching to. That's the guy or the gal you're trying to close with. So we do that in workshop, is giving you those tools, those quick tools to get you back into True Tell, to not let that be the thing that throws you off your game.
That was
So I just
fire.
wanted to mention that.
That was fire, Dave. And conversely, if I might add, if you're having a bad day and, realizing that if you're out of how you normally operate or how you normally speak or present yourself or communicate with someone, to
Yeah,
allow yourself grace as well.
absolutely.
Because we can't always be perfect and always be on our game. And it's so much about basic communication. And yet, if it was basic, everybody would be doing it, right?
Absolutely. And I think that what you provide here, the space you provide, is so inclusive and so accepting and warm. And you really do your homework. I got to tell you, really did your homework on this. And it was such a joy for me, because I didn't know what you were about to ask me. So I loved not knowing where it was going. And I think that's part of life. I know that as you transition into this next chapter of wherever this is going to go, is that what you're bringing, your own mantra of fear into hope, is being able to live that as best you can, and knowing that that voice you have is valued regardless of where it goes. Going to the place of despair that I didn't know where it was meant to go. And I think we all, in parts of our lives, have those journeys that are scary. But I think for you, because of the person you are, that voice has so much more to tell, so many more stories to tell. And I send you all the best. I send you all that great energy and that inspiration and empowerment as you
Thank you
turn
so
that
much.
page.
Thank you very, very much, Dave. That means a great deal, because it really is about your story and the conversations that I have with people and their stories. And it was also birthed out of a time of my own fear of being in the middle of the pandemic and going, okay, we can stay and stew in this, or we can somehow tell stories of hope and people who have moved through absolutely gut-wrenching dark times, such as the one you shared, but have come out the other side. And I just want to acknowledge, because we came through this, we still have COVID, it's still here, but we came through a pandemic where people had to pivot. It is the term, but we had to pivot. We had a choice. Do we stay in this fear? Do we move into something else? And you chose, through the pain that you went through, to look at it as an opportunity to be of service, taking all your prior skill sets, all your creativity, all your passion for a business that served you well and you served it well, and are being a gift to people. So I want to acknowledge that in you and just say that is hopefully an inspiration to people who might be going through the thick of it right now, to say, oh my gosh, yeah, okay, I've got a choice here, and I got to choose the light, and I got to choose the skill set to pull me through. And so I'm curious. I mean, I know the True Tell program that you developed, and the God bless the doctor that you found. And you mentioned that you're a recovering Catholic.
Yeah.
Do you
Totally.
have a specific set of tools or faith that you rely on?
I've never been asked that question before. I do. When my voice first started failing, I started to look at quantum physics. I really did a lot of study with Wayne Dyer, a lot of the spiritual gurus, Deepak Chopra, Eckhart Tolle, Louise Hay. And Louise Hay's, if anybody has ever read or knows about Louise Hay,
Yes, I can't. She's way back. So
amazing, way back, right? Well, her whole idea was that your disease is a dis-ease.
Mhm.
And so I did a lot of that study, and that really got me into meditation quite a bit. And I still hold a very strong spiritual faith in terms of what my life has in front of me and what I'm allowing myself to bring in the good energy, and really identifying the bad energy. But I really hold that really dear to myself. The unfortunate thing is, for me, I don't feel a particular closeness to the Catholic Church anymore, which is sad, which I wish I did. But I still believe in God incredibly, so powerfully, that I believe that, He's given me this journey and given me the ability to see beyond the limitation and to know that I have a purpose to help other people. That really is my thing is really helping people turn that corner, which is so incredibly sweet. That's the coolest thing in the world for me, you know? So yeah, I think that gets me through day in and day out. I think meditation is huge. It really helps big time.
And thank you for sharing that. And I know earlier I kind of made a disparaging remark against the Catholic Church, and I certainly don't mean to belittle anyone's faith
No,
in the
absolutely
Catholic
not.
Church. But what you said, and actually, it's interesting because Anne Ganguza and I talked about this on her episode, is that we talked about how loving people, loving God is kind of two of the main messages. If we can love people well and love God and be of service, I mean, I think that's what we're here for. And oh my gosh, time has disappeared. I have a couple of more questions I want to squeeze in here.
Sure.
So chairman, executive producer, and talent at Get A Laddah, it's Laddah Entertainment. Tell us about that and what inspired the name and what the heck do you do?
Well, that was an inspiration from my mother. My mom is, born and raised Bostonian, and Laddah is the Bostonian spelling for the word ladder, Ladder. That's how we say it. Laddah.
No, I mean, you may say, they don't spell it that way though.
Oh no, but that's how we pronounce it. So my mother always had this phrase where if you did something ridiculously stupid or you were asked a stupid question, she'd say, David, mother of God, get a ladder and get on to yourself. So when I
glad I have that recorded.
When I came with the name of the company, that was it. Like that was the name. I didn't think of anything else. So I don't think anything of it. But if I went to the bank, like if I had a check that was written in at Get A Laddah, I swear to God, people stop me and say, "What is Get A Laddah?" It stops people. I never really ever thought about it, but it's an homage to her, and she, God knows she milks that one for all it's worth. Yeah, but that was the name. That was the loan out company that I named for voiceover. That was my S corp. And then so as part of that, I also developed several television shows as well, and just everything was kind of under that umbrella. Yeah, that's the entertainment arm of it, and I love the name. I mean, it's just to this day, I just
fantastic. Love it. Shout out to Mom. Hey, Mom.
Yep, absolutely.
What makes you hopeful?
That there's always something new around the corner. That there's always a way to improve my life and be there for other people. I think I've been the root of money and possessions and wonderful fortunes, and those things are coming back, and that's a wonderful thing. But I really leaned into that. It wasn't that I wasn't materialistic, but I thought it was kind of a definition of fame. In LA,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It's that thing. And for me, it's more of just the experience of life, the hope of more experience. That's the thing that I realize at this age that I want more than anything is the experience of people, the experiences of travel, the experiences of connecting with people at this new level of myself. That's what keeps me hopeful, is that there's another new experience that's around the corner.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful, Dave, because I've heard it said before that when you're on your deathbed, executive is on his deathbed, he's not going to say, I wish I had worked one more day or I had made one more dollar. It would be depending, I guess, but it would be the experiences and the people and the relationships and the memories. And you may have heard me ask this before to my guests. If there was a soundtrack to your life, what would be on it and why?
Oh, Boogie Wonderland.
Really?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Earth, Wind, and Fire and the Emotions.
Emotions. Uh-huh. Care to sing a bar?
Maria, say do you remember? Yeah. God help me. It is one of those songs that just explodes with joy. And I think that, again, Boogie Wonderland, I mean, in terms of, I really would love to see the world that way, that it is, there are times where, it does get dark and you kind of complain about things, but it really is that place where I just love to dance. I love to, my other favorite song, this is, oh God help me, is I want to dance with somebody who loves me. I think if you can't dance to that, you have no soul.
You know what? I say amen a lot on this show. That deserves an amen because every time that comes on, I don't care if I'm in a supermarket, you got to dance to that. You just have to.
Totally. I don't care whether you like Whitney Houston or you don't. that song itself just becomes an anthem. And believe me, I've been in enough clubs where that song comes on and the whole place sings. I'm telling you. People think maybe people may think of me as, old and whatever, and oh my God, he's trapped in a time warp. No,
What? Who cares? They
Oh.
don't know. They just don't know.
No, I would say, and I've never actually answered that before to say Boogie Wonderland. and I stand by it. I stand by that.
Then that's cool. We're putting your stake in the ground. The flag is waving, and
There you go.
Dave,
What would yours be?
Oh my gosh! Don't. No one's asked me that, and because you're my guest, I am going to just stick with your answer. How's that? There's just so many. Oh my gosh! Okay. I'll give you one. This isn't the definitive, but I will give you one. Shaka Khan's version of "I'm Every Woman."
I'll go with that.
Such a smoke, and put that on your headphones when you're walking. I'm such a spaz when I walk anyway. I do all kinds of arm movements and this, that, and the other. So I'm walking down the street and I'll have that on and I'm like, whoa. So
that's awesome. Absolutely.
Plus it's empowering,
It's so empowering. It's so incredibly empowering. Here's something else for you to look at too. And again, this kind of, people that know me will roll their eyes when they say this. Have you ever seen the movie The First Wives Club?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. The ending song, You Don't Own Me, which Bette Midler and Diane Keaton and Goldie Hawn sing, that ending, I think, is just one of the most fabulous endings for women. I think that's such an empowering song, just for these three women to sing it. And it's fun and it's expressive and it's just, it just rings of fun and authenticity. I really, really love that.
Yeah, and the lyrics. Song. So for someone who's not familiar with it, go listen to that song. My God.
Yeah. Was that Leslie Gore? That wasn't Leslie Gore. Who sang that originally?
I'm old. I don't remember names unless I have them written down.
I don't remember either. Anybody that knows that, tell us. Email.
Right in.
Yes,
right in. 19 stories. Or Dave. Hey, is there something else you want to say before we let people know how to get a hold of you?
Absolutely. The thing that I always talk about, and I say this, it's become my closing I use all the time, but I don't use it as cliche. I just truly believe this. I don't have children that I naturally bore. I have incredible godchildren. I have 2 godsons and 2 goddaughters. They're wonderful. And so for me, it was always kind of asking myself, what can I leave them?
Mm.
What can I contribute to their lives? And as they grew up and as they are as now adults. And I have always said to all 4 of them, never let anyone silence your voice. I truly, with the changes in the world, my godchildren are politically active. They are very empowered. They're very independent kids. And particularly the girls. The girls are they're empowered. It's wonderful. All 4 of them are. But I always say to the 4 kids, never let anyone, including your parents, never let anyone silence your voice. If you're going to contest what someone is saying to you, be sure you have a good defense and be respectful. I always tell them that if you're going to go to the mat with someone, make sure you come from respect first. But I got to say that for everyone listening is that don't let anyone ever silence that voice. That is the biggest sacrilege in the world.
Dave Walsh, how can people get a hold of you? And I will have that in the show notes as well.
Absolutely. You can either reach me. The name of the company, again, is The Truetell, just like it sounds, TheTrueTell.com. That is the website. The email address is dave@thetruetell.com. I'm also on Instagram as The Truetell and on Twitter as well. And please reach out if you feel that this might be a program for you or have questions or whatever. I always welcome that kind of feedback in the community. And that's where I am.
And if listeners don't know by now, you are the real deal. You're highly respected, highly revered, and very well liked, and rightfully so. This has been a delight. I am so honored that you spent this time with me and shared your insights and your love, really, for people and humanity. And I look forward to a continued relationship, and however it plays out, I just so grateful for you, Dave Walsh.
I would agree. To everything you said. And I want to thank you for, you and I finding each other and being so gracious and so interested in this. I'm always so truly grateful when people really take a vested interest and really want to know more and share their own experiences. And I think this has been just a treat. It really has. Thank you so much for this.
You are very welcome, and God bless you. Have a wonderful fall, as much as West Hollywood can present fall.
There's Halloween. That's how we present fall. There are people making costumes now. They start
already.
Making,
Oh my gosh!
I sweat. I'm like, I don't have that kind of creativity.
Yeah, well, I will say, for anyone who has not been to, it really is an extravaganza, which in West Hollywood with
West Hollywood Halloween
Oh
Festival.
my goodness! What
it is.
It's really it's stuff movies are made out of. It really it's like being on a movie set in some ways.
It's crazy.
Yes. So
come on down, everybody.
No, don't. Oh my gosh.
No, please don't. Please don't. I've had it.
It's too many people. The people. All right, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'd also like to thank the following news outlets for the use of their clips in so aptly painting the picture of the fear that we're facing during this pandemic. BBC, PBS, Now This, UNESCO, and Some Good News. I especially want to thank Joel and Luke Smallbone, otherwise known as the Group for King and Country, for allowing me to use an excerpt of their song Together, which could not be a more hopeful and inspiring song for such a time as this. Finally, I'll leave you with the following from Proverbs 23:18. Surely there is a future, and your hope will not be cut off. Thank you again for joining me today. Feel free to offer feedback or a story idea at 19stories@soundsatchelstudios.com, via Instagram at CherylHollingVO. I look forward to sharing more stories on the next episode of 19 Stories from Fear to Hope. Until then, stay healthy and hopeful.
Together with our differences, together we are bolder, braver, stronger.